Welcome back to another podcast. Sat next to me, an old teammate of mine and a very special guest, Will Pryce. Welcome. What is the message, my man?
Thanks for having me, bro. I'm still trying to figure that out myself, the message. Trying to figure it out.
We are, brother. We're all trying to figure it out. Obviously, you came back to the UK this year. How's it feeling being back in the Super League?
No, it's good. Obviously, before I got injured, it were all sort of building up quite nicely. And, the boys welcomed me pretty good at Hull. And it's been good. It's been nice to be back in England, back playing in Super League and getting some wins on the board for Hull.
Absolutely, my man. Come here, talk to us a little bit about that. You did pre-season at Newcastle. You're obviously ripping into an NRL pre-season. We'll touch on going over there as well. But then you end up back in the UK. Was it a bit of a mixed feeling, or were you sort of excited to come back and get back home and test yourself in the Super League again?
Yeah, I think for me, leaving was hard. I had a really good base of friends in Newcastle. The people that I surrounded myself with almost treat me like family and treat me like a little brother. So it was hard leaving them in terms of the older boys, their kids, and getting used to being around them and the missus and wives. And the Lucas and Matt Croker, who I live with, they took me in really well. So leaving them were really hard, but it was exciting to get back playing again. I think I was probably a bit over playing reserve grade week in, week out, and wanted to come back and test myself and sort of give myself, in my head that I knew that I could still do it at a high level. And coming back and playing week in, week out in Super League, it's obviously a tough level, and being able to come back and put together some good performances, I'm looking forward to do that.
For sure, my man. Speaking of that, having that influence of seeing your players around you and them taking you in like a little brother, you were quite young when you moved to the other side of the world. That's not an easy task. How important was it having those lads around you and them really looking after you, like you said, like mentors, but also like brothers?
Yeah, you know what it's like yourself. You've obviously moved over at a young age, and for me, I think when I moved, I was 19, turning 20, so I were only young. I'd never left home. I always lived with my mum and dad, so I was coming into a new surroundings. And when I first moved, I think that probably got on top of me a bit. I didn't really know how to structure a week or have a routine that were good for me, and especially at that level of rugby, it's such a high level sport over there. The training's so hard. Your nutrition's massive value. The way you live off the field's massive, and I didn't really know how to do that. So people like Tyson Frizzell, the Saifiti brothers, Dane Gagai, I had obviously Brady, KP, Dill, Croaks, my younger group of mates, but they'd all lived by themselves for so many years, and to them it was normal. So their wives and kids made me feel like I was back at home with my family and my little brother. So having them people around me that had already done it at the top level that can sort of rub off on you, and they always say the people you surround yourself with, that's where you'll be in 5 years. So I always used to leave that at the back of my mind. And probably the first year I struggled with it massively, but going into my second year, I definitely think that rubbed off onto me and into going into that pre-season and the way I looked at training and the way I tried to look after myself.
Definitely, bro. I think as age goes on, you do learn that as well, and you learn the skills of the game, because people don't realise when you step up into, like when you stepped up into Huddersfield, when you step up into another environment and the levels go up, you need to learn how to live that life, because you have to live like a professional, and the higher the level, the more professional you need to live, don't you? Because it's the 1% things. Yeah. I know when I first came over, like you said, similar to yourself, did not really have a clue about living by myself, as we all do when we first move out. But then you're pairing that with training. So like for breakfast, I used to eat 500 ml of orange juice blended with oats and creatine in a blender. Like that's the most disgusting thing on earth. Imagine having like porridge oats, orange juice and creatine. It was disgusting. And as time goes on, like you learn the intricacies of it. Obviously touching on that, being such a young man, obviously moving to the other side of the world. But how was that step up from being in Huddersfield when we were there together and stepping up to Super League, and then obviously transitioning to an NRL environment? Because like you mentioned, it's such a increase in standards straight away. What's going through your head when you land in Newcastle?
I think for me, obviously the level, I got chucked in pretty quick. So when we were at Huddersfield together, I remember I played like 10 or 11 academy games and then got chucked straight into playing Super League, and then I didn't really leave that level. So I was only young, but I was playing week in, week out at that level, and to me it just felt normal. But the difference in professionalism from Huddersfield and Newcastle were like worlds away. And that's not me throwing a dig at anyone at Huddersfield. It was just the difference in expectations and the difference between how the two clubs were ran. I didn't know what to expect. So when I went in, I was still going in with the same mindset of I'm Will Pryce at Huddersfield in Super League, where I can kind of get away with stuff that I couldn't get away with at Newcastle, you know. And I found that out pretty quickly. I went into Newcastle and I was probably 4 or 5 kilos overweight. I were injured at the time, so that didn't really help, and I didn't really see the value in working hard and training hard. And Newcastle as a city is a really hard-working, blue-collar city. So I got to know the city, and the people that were from Newcastle helped me that were involved at the club. And you know, I soon realised that talent can only get you so far. And if you've got the talent and you work hard alongside it, it can boost you to levels you don't know what you can get to. And that's where I think I'm kind of at now, where I've got a group of young lads underneath me at Hull that are still learning. I'm trying to help them learn by trying to be the best positive influence I can be, in terms of trying to show them how to act as a professional by my actions and lead by my actions. And it's only because of the people that I had around me at Newcastle I'm able to do that have taught me how to be a bit more of a professional, be a bit more comfortable in my own skin. And yeah, it was hard because I never knew what to expect when I went over there. I obviously knew how tough it was going to be, but you'll know yourself. You don't know what to expect when you go into an NRL pre-season and get there. It's a different level.
It's a different gravy altogether, and it's mad to think. Obviously, me and you, we had a little catch up on a coffee before this, but how much you've matured over those 3 years. Like, I remember when you stepped up into Super League, and like you said, mate, you were star boy. You know, you were a class above any kid I've ever seen step into Super League environment. Like, clearly gifted, confident, but then to see how much you've grown as a man and as a person, it's incredible to see. And like you touched on there, going into that NRL environment, it's that cutthroat and the standards are that high. And even when I got there, having done 2 Super League pre-seasons prior, like, I thought dropping into a 20s environment, maybe I was arrogant to think that, surely I'll have a bit of an idea. I've done 2 Super League pre-seasons, but it's a completely different level, and the competitive nature it's insane, isn't it? It's insane. It's so cutthroat. It's so cutthroat. So you get there and you soon realise that you're lifting your standards. Yeah. But that's a good thing. Do you know, and you'll probably look back in 5 years' time from now, and that's what I feel from my experiences is if you're not looking back at your previous pre-season or 4 or 5 years ago how you acted, because you're not improving, are you? No. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing, isn't it? Because it's like one of those ones that at the time you think you're doing the right thing. Like, I'm sure when I, like 3-4 years ago when I was at Huddersfield, at the time I thought, yeah, I'm a true professional here. I'm doing everything. But that's all you know in that moment. Yeah. So if someone asked you before you went, you probably said, yeah, I'm doing what professional rugby players should be doing. And then you change the lens you look at the world. Yeah. You go to Newcastle, it switches up how you look at things because you learn off, and then you go, oh no, I can do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And then you come back to Hull and you go, oh, it changes it again. You learn off someone else, you learn from a different player, and you continue to grow. So you get there anyways. Yeah. You touch down. How long do you reckon it took you to sort of settle into that life? Because it's completely different to living at home. Yeah.
To be honest, probably a good 6 months to a year. I think the first year of me living in Australia, I struggled being away from home. I didn't really feel homesick, but as you say, I didn't understand the value of what I was doing in terms of how to get to where I wanted to be. So for me, when I moved, I had quite a lot of pressure on me because there was a lot of hype around me and Kai signing, being 2 English lads, and in the Australian media, especially in Newcastle, it's a 1-team town, so everybody knows who we are. Everybody's expecting me to play straight away, and I didn't. And I played quite a few games. So in reserve, so the pressure mounted on me really quick, and I feel like I tried to escape that by probably doing the wrong things. Probably I was drinking a lot on weekends after games, whether we won or lost. I was away from home, so I didn't really have my mum or dad to speak to on a genuine level where I could sit down and have conversations about how I was feeling. And it definitely got on top of me, but I think my whole perspective changed when I realised I wasn't where I wanted to be. The first 6 months, I wasn't training particularly hard, and because the levels and the cutthroatedness of the NRL is so high, and the confidence on so many players and the way they work is so good, my talent wasn't getting me as far as I thought it were going to get me. And I remember I had a conversation with Brian McDermott, and I said, what do I need to do to play NRL? And he turned around to me and said, we don't think you're fit enough. And for me, that had never been an issue. I'd never been told I wasn't fit enough. I'd always been the front of conditioning. I'd always been running good fitness times. And then as soon as I heard that, I were a bit like struck. I was like, well, I'm nowhere near as good as I think I am. I need to sort of give my head a shake. And after that first 6 months where I struggled to settle in terms of training and playing wise, once I'd give myself that realisation where I'm not where I want to be, I started to work a lot harder. I was doing extra conditioning, extra weights, and sort of flip my mindset around. And then that's where it started to ease off for me. I started to feel more at home, more comfortable in the environment. You know, training hard didn't become a punishment; it became an enjoyment. And yeah, that sort of first 6 months were definitely hard, but after that, it sort of eased off.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that you touched on there is that sort of realisation element of when you go, I'm not where I want to be, and how do I bridge that gap? And the thing about that is you come to a crossroads, and I've literally been there before. I'm not where I want to be, so you have the choice then. Yeah. Do you drive yourself towards where you want to go with action, or do you take the easy path and go, oh, well, that didn't work out for me, or he didn't really favour me, or, oh, it wasn't meant for me, Australia. Yeah. And you obviously, you drove yourself down the, I'm going to work hard as fuck path. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's not always that straightforward. And so many people get caught in that bridge where they go, where am I going to go? The paths diverge, and they go, no, it wasn't went for me. And that element of excuse creeps in. I feel like we've all been there before where, like you said, you're probably not where you want to be, and the easy out is drinking, and it's just the easy wins, isn't it? Like my first ever loan spell in the championship, I went to Whitehaven for a few games, and I went up to Swinton, and then I finished the season off at Swinton, and I wasn't where I wanted to be. Let's call a spade a spade. I was at Huddersfield at the time, and if I'm honest, I just sort of got into that comfort mode. Looking back now, I got in that comfort mode. I fell into the hole of playing championship. You know, I wasn't knocking on anyone's door to try get a shot at Huddersfield. I just finished off the season at Swinton, and listen, a few things didn't go my way in terms of the fact that politics. In this case, I ended up being a quota player that year in 2021. I remember. I don't know if you remember this, I ended up getting put down as a quota player, and I was like, "Listen, I'm from Ireland." So in the end of the season, I couldn't actually play for Huddersfield, even if I wanted to, because we'd maxed out the quotas. But regardless of that, I fell into that hole of I'm playing in the championship. It's whatever. But you're not knocking on anyone's door, trying to take anyone's shirt, and you have to actually realise I'm not as good as I think I am, and that's why I'm here. Yeah. And it sounds like you did just that. So you brush through the first 6 months, you start to settle in, you're training the gaff down. How long after this conversation does the NRL debut come? So I remember I sat down with Brian McDermott, and we went for a walk around, and he's obviously really good mates with my dad, and I just thought, I'm going to speak to him. He's a really upfront and honest person, so if whatever I ask him, he's going to tell me the truth. And I told him, and he gave me a straight answer. And it sort of made me realise and knocked me down a peg or two, and I was just like you talked about then, I'd probably been making quite a lot of excuses for myself, I probably found myself being too comfortable, as in wasn't working hard enough. And that conversation probably came in like a late May, June time, so this is probably 6 weeks before I debuted, or maybe a month to 6 weeks before I debuted. But yeah, my mindset changed, so I went from playing New South Wales Cup and just getting through it and struggling week in, week out, where I'd have a good game and then have 5 bad games, and my confidence was really low and the pressure was high on me to sort of building in performances in New South Wales Cup, and my performances were getting better and better and better, and I know that my confidence was growing. And then I managed to get, I remember the day we played against Penrith at home, and I played really well in Cup, and I remember we played on like a Friday night, and then I was in on Monday morning early, and I was out on the field kicking by myself. I was just doing some short kicks, and the coach came out, Adam O'Brien, and told me I was going to make my debut this week. And I remember the feeling. I've never had that feeling before in my life. It was something like, so one feeling I hope everybody in the world can experience once in their life, just the happiness and, you know, the pride in yourself that you get. And, you know, looking back I'm so grateful for the conversation I had with him, where I realised and had the sort of shock, so that I could change the way I acted. And, you know, I feel like the boys probably saw that in me as well. I was coming into training early, I was doing a bit more off-feet conditioning, I was watching what I ate more, doing more recovery.
and prepping properly. So I think that gained the respect of the boys a bit more. I feel like that's probably the reason I ended up making my debut, was because the senior boys saw that I was working a bit harder and thought that they could probably trust me in that environment on the field, where to be able to play in that position, you've got to just be able to trust each other. So yeah, it probably came around 6 weeks after I had that conversation.
It's crazy, isn't it? The time between the action and then boom, the opportunity comes. Childhood dream, I presume.
Yeah.
Childhood dreams coming true. So how does that week build up then? You're coming into the NRL debut. Like, obviously, like you said, you touch on your Super League debut, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But coming into debuting for Newcastle Knights, like, obviously a dream come true from a lad around here. You're getting to play in the NRL. Like, that is something seriously special.
Yeah.
What's going through your head that weekend? Who's the first phone call you ring? Are you ringing your mum, ringing your dad?
Yeah. So when I got told that I was going to make my debut, it was like in the morning in Australia. So it was like the late at night in England, so no one was awake. It was like 1 a.m. in England. So I sent a text message into my family group chat just saying, I'm going to make my NRL debut, ring me as soon as you can. And I remember like ringing my mum and dad and just being like overwhelmed with pride. Like they were speaking, and I was just so excited. I'd not seen them for like 7 months, 8 months. So it'd been a long time I'd not seen them for. And just being able to tell everyone at home that I was going to be making my debut, and being able to organise the week of getting them over from Australia. So we had a bit of a struggle. So you could have 2 people. The club paid for 2 people. So obviously I've got a younger brother who's only 8 years old. My sister was working at the time, so she couldn't come over. But my mum and dad flew out, and my little brother came with them. So I paid for my little brother to come. But my dad had he had to get his DBS checked so that he could come, because he had a criminal conviction from when he was like 18. So that all limits your access to be able to get a visa. So my mum and brother came. And for my dad to come, he got like a last minute flight, and we were playing on a Friday night, and he managed to get there just on the Thursday morning. He got there for my jersey presentation, so it all worked out pretty special. But the week just leading up to it, of getting them over, being able to show them around Newcastle and where I lived and where I was calling home, that I loved so much, and introducing them to all these people that looked after me, it almost gave me a sense of relief, because I just understood how good everything were around me. I understood that the people I was surrounding myself with, the love that they showed to my family, and when I'd speak to my family about them, the way that they talked back about them and how much they enjoyed being around them, it was like I knew I'd made the right decision in the people I was surrounding myself with. I knew that it were a great place anyway, but when they came and they saw it, and just being with them again, it was so good. It was so emotional, the week building up to it, and not many English players have played in the NRL, and I sort of look back on it now, and I only played 5 games, but them 5 games, no one can take them away from me. And I loved every minute of the week, and I almost wish I could live it again. I probably didn't enjoy it too much, because I was getting ready for the game, and I was stressed, I was nervous, but the week it was so good.
Yeah, it's something special, isn't it? It's something special, that moment when you get to show your family, this is who I'm hanging around with, this is what my day-to-day life looks like, this is a city that I'm living in. And then you go, it's a bit of a reality check, isn't it? You go, shit, this is my life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And this is one of the frames that drove me towards professional rugby, is that when I was back home in Ireland and I was working in McDonald's, and I had a dream of doing something with my life which wasn't the traditional route. I just knew I wanted to be surrounded by good, motivational people. That was one of the biggest drivers for me, because like I seen what the people 10 years older than me who didn't take any action were like, and I was like, I want to be surrounded by people who are very driven and very motivated, and a positive environment to be in. So by the sounds of it, you had that in abundance in Newcastle. And then the other point that I think is really ironic, because I sort of felt the same about my Super League debut. Sometimes when you get a debut, is you don't actually take it in and live in the moment so much, do you? Because it's a week that goes so fast. And everything's just like, it's nearly a blur, isn't it? You know, it's like, well, for yourself, you're sorting out family coming over, you're going through all this stuff, and you're also thinking, shit. This is, like, you're really a bit spooked, aren't you? You know what I mean? Because like it's a lot of pressure, and especially for you in your position, it's even more pressure. Like, it's one thing being in the middle, coming off the bench, you know what I mean? But there's mountains of pressure. Like you said, you're one of the English kids who come over. One team town. How are you feeling when you crossed that whitewash and you made it on the big stage?
I remember like the day of my debut, when we were going out for the game. I remember everything. So when we got to the stadium, I remember being really quiet and nervous. And the coach knew that I was nervous just from how quiet I was, and he came over and just made sure, all right, I'm I'm just nervous because I don't really get nervous for games much, but when it's a game like that, it's different. The feeling's different. I got like that. Them nerves were the same nerves I had when I made my debut for Hull against Hull KR in the Challenge Cup. Like them big games, it's a different type of feeling in your stomach. So I remember being really nervous and remember going out for warm up and seeing the crowd and just. I remember the club got my family a box, so I remember seeing them up there, sat there, and I just felt so nervous. But as soon as I ran out, the boys that ran out with me, I ran in between Daniel Saifiti and Jacob Saifiti. So they were like, I remember just as we were walking out, they were like, "I've got you, we've got you." And like, as soon as they said that, I just remember just being so at ease and but running out to Newcastle, it was sold out. So there's like 25,000 fans, and we were selling out week in, week out, and we were playing against a Parramatta side where I was playing against like Mitch Moses, who I watched since I was really young, and I remember the week before he'd just played Origin and scored an hat-trick. I think he scored 2 tries, and I was just like, this guy's. I'm playing against him now. It's like it's crazy, and I remember just getting out there, and as soon as we kicked off, the first thing I can remember is we attacked the first set. Jackson Hastings come round, kicked it, and I had to kick chase, and I got stuck between Daniel Saifiti and Tyson Frizzell, and they can both bang, and they kicked it straight to Mike Acevo, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? Why am I stuck here? So we're chasing, and I'm like, I've just got to throw everything I can at it. And I got sandwiched between all 3 of them. And Mike Acevo, you've seen him knock people out before. He hit me, and I went back, and I remember I was just blurred, I had stars, and I was like crawling back to the line. You can see it in the debut. I'm like crawling back, and I get up, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And then just straight away from that, I were into it. But yeah, the night were amazing. We managed to get a good win. Bradman scored 2 like long range freaky tries. I obviously scored a try on debut, which were like
insane,
crazy. Just that were a different level of just achievement. I was so happy with that. And I remember when we got the win, just all the boys got round me, and the hugs and getting my family down onto the field. It were just looking back on it now, it's once in a lifetime, and I'll never get to experience that sort of feeling again, where it's a dream I've had since I was 8 or 9, and getting my family down there, it was just unbelievable.
You've got me a little bit buzzed up. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm feeling the type of way right now. I'm like, right, come on, we go play now. I'm fired up having heard that, and it's so special, those moments. That's why we play sport. That's the reason that we do what we do.
Yeah,
it's to have those moments and to share them with the people that you love and your family. It's so special. Touching on that, your family, obviously, your dad Leon, a legend of the game himself. What was that like growing up, watching your dad play at Bradford, play at Catalan, play at such a high level for so long? Were you always like, I'm going to do the same thing? Or did it come a little bit later on?
So obviously, yeah, like you say, my dad had like an unbelievable career. He's won everything he can in the game. I was speaking to him about it the other day, and he'd at my age, he'd already won a treble. He'd won a Super League Grand Final. He'd won World Club Challenges, Challenge Cups. So for me, that looked like the norm. So growing up, I was watching him in these successful Bradford, St Helens teams. Went and lived in the south of France for 3 years, from the age of like 7, 8 till I was 10. So for me, that just seemed like the norm, and because I loved rugby league so much, not because he made me play. I loved the game. I had a different rugby kit on every day of the week. I'd go to every single one of his games. And I have memories, because he had me so young. I have memories of going and watching these games that I can still remember now. So I always wanted to play rugby. And then I remember when I got to probably 13 or 14, when you start getting these contracts for scholarship at certain teams, I never got one. So I remember not getting a scholarship and being a bit worried about like, well, what am I going to do? Because I only ever wanted to play rugby league. And then managing to get an opportunity. But obviously now, when I'm a bit older and I've played, this is my fifth year now in professional rugby, you sort of realise how hard it is to be at the top level every single year of your career, pretty much, and he managed to do that. So for me now, my goal of mine is to just win one major trophy. That's, I suppose, what every player wants to do. They want to win. So for me, it's just to win one. But to look back on his career and how many he's won, and sort of the influence he has on some of them teams in them big games, it's a pride moment. It's a pride thing for me. I'm proud of the way he carried himself and the type of player he was. And I've spoke about before, just trying to leave that legacy in a good place that he's put before me. It's not a burden for me. It's just something I'm proud to have with that last name, and just sort of keep pushing it to a new level.
That was literally the next thing I was going to ask. Do you feel like it was pressure? But you just touched on it there, for saying it's not a burden. I feel like it's so special. Obviously, having someone like that in your life from an early age, having that influence in sport within your life. It's mad seeing I always laugh with you and Smell, seeing the photos of you when you were
Yeah,
taught, and then now you're playing against each other.
Mental,
Like
bro.
it's crazy. It's crazy seeing that. And obviously he's been so successful at Bradford,
Yeah.
as well as St Helens. Had such a monumental career in the game over here. And like you said, every player just wants to win one major trophy, and it's crazy. Like you said, at your age, he done so much, and that's once in a lifetime. That's a freak. It's unexplainable, isn't it? It's unexplainable.
Yeah.
I think one of the things though that a lot of people don't realize is being surrounded by sport from a young age. Like it's one of the most beneficial things, isn't it? I think that like every young person listening to this, if they don't play sport, they should play a sport, but they should be surrounded by sport as well. Like I know I only came into sport late, and I came into rugby league even later.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful for the opportunities that sport has given me and having that influence. And it sort of drives you to be a better person, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It drives you to be a better person. Touching on the scholarship thing, you mentioned you didn't get picked up by a scholarship initially. What do you think the reason for that was, and then how did you end up at Huddersfield?
So obviously, when I was playing rugby growing up, everyone sort of knew who I was because of my dad. So I remember when I came back from France at 10, and then I started playing for West Bowling again. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, them years where I was playing local amateur rugby. Everyone knew I was because of my dad, so I'd get a lot of stick from other parents, other coaches. So, like looking back on it now, it's crazy. I've got an 8-year-old brother, and if a parent from another team were to say anything towards him, I'd probably lose my head. I'd lose my shit, and I'd have to go say something. But I had that at a young age, so I was getting getting stick from other parents, other coaches, and to me it just felt like the norm. So I just got on with it, but I also had that chip on my shoulder. So I remember being 13, 14 and sort of being like really ignorant towards the scholarship coaches. I almost had this thought in my head where I knew more than what they did because of who I am, and I was so wrong to believe that. And that was just an ego-driven young person. I didn't understand how to be a proper. I was obviously just growing up, so I had that chip on my shoulder because of the way people were towards me, and I suppose towards them that probably seemed as an arrogance. So I obviously at 14 I wasn't the best player. My talent wasn't there yet. I could obviously do some stuff on the field that I'd learned from my dad, and obviously you always have your moments, but I wasn't like these players where I were winning all these trophies, scoring loads of tries at 14, 15. I probably didn't start kicking on until after COVID when I was like 17, 18, when I'd sort of grown a bit and I'd got a bit more confidence. So yeah, growing up, 14, them ages there, them 13, 14-year-old years, I struggled massively with rugby, and I didn't get picked up that first year of scholarship. I think I had one offer from Wakefield, but their scholarship setup wasn't great at the time. I remember they were really struggling to keep it alive. So I went on trial at Saints, which my dad managed to get me. So at that time, then on top of that, I've got people saying to me, well, you're only here because of your dad. On top of that, it makes the situation even harder for a young lad where stuff like that sticks in your mind. So I stayed at Saints for a year, and they had a player the year above me who was going to be their main player. So they had Lewis Dodd, who was the year above me, and I was obviously playing in the NRL. They sort of said to me after that first year, look, we've got this kid, we're going to chuck all his eggs into this basket with him. They obviously had Jack Wellesby, who's a few years older than me. They said, we have got this other kid. We don't see a pathway for you here. And at the time, I was playing rugby union as well. He said, we've spoken to Andy Kelly at Huddersfield, and they would like to see if you would go there for a year on scholarship. And looking back on it now, it's the best thing I could have ever done. I went to Huddersfield, Andy Kelly. You know, I always mention him whenever I do things like this, because if it wasn't for him, I genuinely wouldn't be here today. He was the man who gave me that opportunity to go play, and then with that opportunity, I managed to flourish. But yeah, it's all down to him giving me that opportunity. So that second year of scholarship, I went to Huddersfield, and I kicked on massively. I think, you know, the confidence they showed in me, I felt like I had to repay it. So I remember I played some good rugby in scholarship. I managed to make the England squad for the under-16s against France, but then again I was not back in that. So the coach for that under-16s England squad, Danny Wilson, who's now I think he's the CEO at Castleford. So at the time he was our head coach. We played one game. After half an hour, our winger went off. The player was on the hooker, went to 6 where I was playing, and I got moved to the wing. So I remember just being so annoyed, feeling like, I wasn't good enough. Moved me to the wing, and then for the second game, I didn't get picked. So I remember I wasn't picked at all, and I was just like, I keep getting these knockbacks, these setbacks, and I'm struggling. I don't know if I'm good enough to make it. I got signed at Huddersfield into academy, and then my first year academy we had COVID, and if it wasn't for COVID, I genuinely don't know if I'd have kicked on like I did. I think that year out of playing, where I sort of grew a bit more. I was practicing every day because that's all I could do out in my garden. I had a rugby field next to my house. That's all I could do. That sort of year of missing the game and realising that I can't play, so I was missing it. I wanted to play, and getting back into the game after that was just that sort of year of kicking on. We're probably from that.
It's so special to hear that, because like for people from the outside in, like you said, well, you've had it from a young age. People are judging you for who you are, who your dad is, what your last name is. They're hammering you on the sideline, playing under 13s, under 14s. So there's clearly that pressure. And then for someone listening now, they only see the success. They only see the fruits of the labour. They only see the NRL. They only see the playing week in, week out with Super League. They don't see the setbacks. Yeah. So for someone like yourself, for people to hear that you've been through those setbacks, it just goes to show that the adversity is nearly what builds you every single time. And sometimes, like, if those setbacks don't happen, we don't become the person who we are today. Like, I know for a fact that when I had a trial at North East of Leinster, so not even the full Leinster under-16s team, the North East under-16s, if I don't get knocked back from that trial, I don't explore my options to leave Balbriggan, to try sign at a better rugby union team, and then end up playing rugby league as a result, and then end up over here today. But that's only because I got set back. So sometimes you don't know why, like, God's putting this in your path. You know, these barriers are there to help you grow as a person. And the same with COVID, like, when COVID hit, I thought my life was over. My life peaked. I went from academy to signing a Super League deal to going over to Canberra under-20s. I was like, this is peak, to upgrade my deal while I was there, to train a bit more with the NRL, to back home washing windows, to then make my Super League debut. But I wouldn't have made my Super League debut if COVID didn't happen, because I would have still been in Canberra. Yeah. So all these setbacks happen for a reason, and it's how you frame the adversity every single time. Yeah. Every single time adversity comes your way, it's about how you frame it. Do you know, if you frame it in why me, the victim mentality, or like you said, with ego and arrogance, and every single sports person needs some arrogance. No one who's ultra successful in any walks of life, whether that's sport, business, anything they do, no one who has that kind of success, it doesn't come out the back of a bit of arrogance. Do you know what I mean? I think you know the sculpture David.
Yeah.
So I think it's Michelangelo. I think it's Michelangelo who makes David. I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but he decided when he was making David, he had this big block of marble or whatever. He backed himself so much that he spent like the first year or 9 months or however long just cutting up bodies to know every little intricacy. But he had that arrogance that he knew he could sculpt it if he knew what was going on. Yeah. Do you know? So every single successful person has to have that little bit of arrogance, that touch of arrogance. But if you use that paired with the right action, obviously you're inevitably going to be successful. So if it's having that arrogance to go, I can do this, but also putting the ego aside and going, when I get a setback, this is a lesson to be learned.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's a good one, because this is not us saying to young kids out there, you've got to be arrogant to be a good player. It's more of, you've got to have that self-belief before anything. Yeah. So I guess that would probably what got mistaken with just the self-belief. I remember my dad always used to say to me, if you don't believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you.
No
and
way.
that was my dad saying that. He wouldn't believe in me if I didn't believe in myself, if I didn't believe I could do it. So for the young kids out there, it's about making sure, first and foremost, you believe in yourself all the time. It might seem like it's a long path. You might get setbacks. You might feel like you're not great right now, but the self-belief can change your mindset completely, and that's all you need is sometimes just one flick of a switch, change your mindset, self-belief, and your confidence will grow. I think, I hope I can, my goal in life is to help put a positive aspect on other people. I want people to look back on me and say, he's a real positive person and I enjoy being around him. And I think if other people have that sort of mindset where, like you were mentioning before, when you're in sport, it's such a great thing for young kids because of I feel like the discipline it teaches you, the social skills you get from it. But also if you can have that self-belief, and parents can drive that self-belief in the kids to go and achieve something, it sets you up so good in life.
100%, and you have to back yourself, don't you? You have, like you said, you have to have that self-belief before anyone else has it in you to be a bit crazy, to say, I'm going to do this. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to go and make this life that I believe in be mine.
Yeah.
Do you know? And that when I was at home in Ireland, working in McDonald's, chasing my dream, I was the craziest bloke on earth. Telling people I'm going to play pro rugby. The people are laughing at me. They're like, you work at McDonald's. Do you know what I mean? Like, who are you to say you're going to make it as a pro rugby player? Like, you have no opportunities. You're from a small town. Like obviously around here, there's a rugby stadium every 15.
Yeah.
If you drive from here 15 minutes away, you're at a stadium. Another 15 minutes, you're at another stadium.
Yeah.
There's games on there's live sport, there's professional sport, there's Super League teams within half an hour of each other. Like, it's there on the doorstep, really. Like, back home in Ireland, there's 4 professional rugby teams.
Yeah.
4. There's no League 2, there's no second division,
Yeah.
there's nothing like that. And there's like one or two stadiums in Dublin, but it's a big thing to go and watch a game like that. It's not like, I feel like over here you can go casually watch a game, you know, you can go watch it. There's amateur games that are decent, so you can go watch a bit of rugby, but it's not on your doorstep back home. So when I had this big stupid belief in myself, like, you do come across crazy, but to do anything that's a bit mad and to have that influence on people and inspire people to follow a journey or inspire people to be the best version of themselves, you do have to have that crazy self-belief. So 2021 arrives. You step up into pre-season with Huddersfield. This is when we first sort of crossed paths. Obviously, I knew you as a young kid in scholarship, but this is when we sort of crossed paths, and immediately you're sort of turning heads coming into 2021, and that's when you make your Super League debut for Huddersfield. Early enough in the season, in all things considered, wasn't it?
Yeah. Obviously, I remember it clear as day. It's probably the best time of my life, with that first year in Super League, getting brought into first team training. I was 17 and I would turn 18 a couple of weeks in. So I remember just getting ready to go train with the first team and being so excited, and my dad just saying, you've got to just go prove yourself. Like, you've got to treat training like it's games. So I did. And when I was training, I remember just trying to impress everyone as much as I could. So whether that were winning conditioning, I'd try my best to win that. If that were, we were doing 13 on 13, I was like, if I can do something to impress here, I'm going to make a break. If I can try and make one of the older boys look silly, even though I respected him so much, I was going to try and I'd step him. And, you know, you earn your respect by working hard in them environments. Everyone knows that. And yeah, it all happened really quick for me, and I had a really good year because, you know, as we were speaking about the setbacks before, I trained like a month or two in the pre-season, and because I'd not trained at that level ever, my body was breaking down. So I had a stress fracture in my lower back, and I stopped training for around 4 months. Obviously just rehabbing it, and then as I came back was like the week before the first academy game, and I had a really good start of the year in academy. I were flying in terms of scoring tries, setting up tries, good kicking game, making good tackles. So I was proving that I could play at a good level to myself anyway. You know, where I didn't have that proof before. I didn't have that evidence in my mind where I knew I could do it. But yeah, I managed to get the opportunity to play my Super League debut against Catalan and come off the bench for the last 20, 25 minutes, and, you know, I sort of kicked on from there really. I played that game, and I think I played another 10 or 15 games for the rest of the year. I didn't leave the team, so yeah, that sort of first year in Super League were probably, I look back at one of the best years of my life. I enjoyed it so much.
How good is that? Like, what a story, I suppose, coming in so young. And I think, looking back, I wish I took a leaf out of your book a bit more, that I probably showed a bit too much respect, you know, to the older boys, and like, you need to come in and ruffle feathers. I see it now with the young lads. Like, I see that many young lads come up and they come and go. You know what I mean? Because they just drop in, they do a little bit, and then they drop back down to academy, and that's that. You know what I mean? You have to turn heads, and you need to make an impression quick. Do you know? And you need to make an impression. Either you're the person who trains hard, or the person who like every time they touch the ball, it turns to gold.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You have to turn heads quick, because if not, it's the next person, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someone else will be a year behind you, and they'll be coming up to you and going, "I'm going to have that jersey if you don't want it." Do you know? So you do need to make that impression quick. What a first year, I suppose, making your Super League debut. How good was that?
Yeah, it was unreal. That sort of achievement and pride feeling that I got from the NRL game was the same as Super League one. I've watched Super League since I was born. I've been around it. I've grown up wanting to win a Challenge Cup, wanting to win the Super League. So I remember, you know, the week before that, I was 18th man, and one of the boys were like really genuinely like 50-50 whether he wasn't going to play. And then he ended up playing. So I was 18th man. I think Tully at the time, and Andy Tulsher, we love him. He was one of the best. He's the kit man at Huddersfield. He had my name written wrong on the back of my shirt, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
This is
if I play here, I was like, "Oh, I don't know what was going to happen." So, you know, I was 18th man the week before, and then that game was an international week, and C's did his syndesmosis, and then he got surgery. So if it weren't for C's getting injured, I probably wouldn't have played my debut. And obviously now me and C's play together at All FC, and I travel with him every day from Leeds to Hull. So, you know, it all comes round in full circle. But
always
that first game of Super League was just unbelievable. I remember just being so excited, again being nervous. I was sat on the bench like having to do breathing because I was so nervous, like I was so stressed. I ran onto the field. I remember Catalan had just scored, and at this time Catalan were like, apart from Saints, were the best team in Super League. They won the league leaders this year. They made the grand final. I remember running onto the field at the halfway line, waiting for the boys to come back, and Sam Tompkins come over and he shook my hand. Like, congratulations, have a good game. And to me, like, for me, Sam's the best player to ever play Super League. That's just my opinion. Not saying it's right or wrong, but for me, he's the best player to ever play Super League. So for Sam to come on and do that, I was like, wow, this is crazy. But yeah, I just that young me at 18, I had no pressures. I was just full of confidence. I knew that if I went in and played, and I just did whatever I did, not in whatever I wanted in a sense, but I just proved by having no pressure that I could sort of throw these passes that if they didn't come off, no one were bothered because I were only young, and I had the sort of no pressure mentality where I was just trying things, and if it came off, it came off. If it didn't, it didn't. And that's probably what got me half of my games, where that first game I managed to get a nice try assist, and then 2 games later I had my first Super League start against Wigan, and I scored in that game, and things were just coming off for me, and it just felt so good. It was just playing with no pressure, playing as a young kid with confidence, and a bit of self-belief, and I didn't really read too much into things. And I suppose that's just part of growing up, where I've got a bit older now and I'm in a team where I'm going to play a bit more of an important role, where I want to be a bit more of a leader in this environment, and I want to be in that position where when the game's tight, people give me the ball and look for me. Like, I want to be one of them players, you know. But yeah, that first year of Super League, it was just so enjoyable, you know. And I suppose you'll have had it in your career as well, where you play games and everything just feels like it's coming off for you. And I suppose at a young age, it probably did me no good, because going into the next year, the year completely changed. I only played probably 10 Super League games. I got banned for 10 games when I tackled and dropped Connor Wynne on his head. So my year completely changed. It flipped over. But that first year was just the best time of my life. I played for England nights at the end of the year. I scored in that game, got man of the match. It was like everything was just coming off. Everything was coming off really well for me. But like we talked about before, you always get that reality check. You always get it always comes back to bite you, and you test yourself mentally again. You have to see if you can go again and do it again. And I had probably second year syndrome where I didn't kick on very well, but yeah, I always knew that I wanted to play Super League. I always wanted to prove to everyone that I could do it. And when I was getting there and doing it, it was sort of just that chip on my shoulder was still there. I was still sort of trying to prove to everyone, and that's probably why I probably kicked on as well as I did.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that as well. Like I feel like nowadays everyone, it's sort of like a bad thing to come across like, nah, I want to prove people wrong. Too fucking right, you want to prove people wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. I think life has the best combination when you're running away from something you don't want. In that case, being shit at footy, and running towards something you do want, being a good athlete. Yeah. So when I want to prove these people wrong, and I want to be the best version of me, that's the best combo. Whereas if you just want to prove people wrong and you don't care about being a good version of you, that can go all right for a while, but then eventually that comes cold. And same, if you're just chasing something, but you don't have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, like again, like sometimes the best combination is a bit of both. Yeah. And like you said, you always learn. You come into your second year, probably didn't go as well as you wanted to, and maybe that's an element of it went really well in the first year, or maybe it's just one of those ones that like it's another lesson to learn. I feel like when I look back at my time in Huddersfield, if I had my time again, I would have done different things, and that's easy to reflect on now as I've grown as a person. But I've done a lot of work on myself as an athlete, as a professional, as an individual, and that's. And my mentality and how I approach things. And that's been one of the biggest growth factors for myself, is that not that it came easy, but I just thought, I can just cruise up full time and eventually I'll get opportunities. And like it's not like I didn't train hard. I was never a person who didn't train hard. Like you've been at Huddersfield with me. We've been on ski ergs together. It's not like I never train. It's not like I didn't train hard. So I don't want to come across that way. But it's how you apply that hard training.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you train as you can train as hard as you want, but it needs to translate onto the rugby field. And like you mentioned, obviously you're at Hull with C's now, and C's has been massive influence on me in terms of. It needs to apply on the rugby field. He always says to me, "You're not a fucking bodybuilder." Yeah. That's what he always says to me. "You're not a bodybuilder." Like it needs to translate. If it doesn't translate, it's no good to anyone. It doesn't. And that translation is all through action, and it's all through the mentality as well. That I'm going to apply myself and be an absolute competitor. Do you know, be an absolute competitor, which you have in abundance.
Yeah, I feel like when you spoke about that there with the mentality you've got to have and the mentality switch, it's hard in our sport, especially in rugby league. You know, it's a very blue collar, hard working sport. Rugby league, everyone comes from the middle class. There's not many people that are different to us. We're all pretty similar personalities, where we all talk about working hard, come from working backgrounds, and that's where the sport's trying to change now. I think where we speak about we want to Americanise rugby league, we want to make it more of a brand where you have more personalities and individuals in the sport. But then on the flip side to that, some fans can comment on the way people and players are, on their personality, and knock them down a peg or two. But then we want the sport to be bigger and Americanise the sport so that it's a more individualised. We've got these big personalities, but then you've also got coaches and players that look at things as simple as maybe dyeing your hair. If you do that as a football player, you dye your hair, you come in and flash your car. If you're playing well, no one really cares. But in rugby league, you can't do that. So it's hard to find a balance of being able to express yourself as an individual in that environment.
For sure.
I think that's obviously, like this, for example, is part of that. You know, you're doing something outside of rugby where you're putting yourself out there and showing people your true personality away from the sport. There's always going to be people that comment on that in a negative way, manner. And, you know, it's good. I feel like we need more of this in rugby, where we have people showing their individualism through, whether that's social media or on the field. You know, I always speak about Mikey Lewis. You know, me and Mikey, I've played with Mikey many a time, and you know, I'm on the other side of Hull now, where there's a massive rivalry. So I see all the people giving him shit and stick, but I also get the same shit and stick from the Hull KR fans. But if you don't have players like that in the Super League, if we don't have these personalities where you hate them or you love them, it's not enjoyable to watch. I remember my dad always saying, the fans always chant at the best players. They always give the best players stick. You used to always see St Helens fans giving Sam Tompkins stick, but it's because he's the best on the field. I feel like that our sport needs to keep growing in that sense of we keep having these individuals in the game that can keep growing the sport as much as we can, especially in England. You know, see a lot of it in Australia, but we need it in England. For sure.
And mate, this is so important. And I've not really spoke about this much on the pod before, but you've hit the nail on the head. We need individuals. We need stars of the sport, and you see it in Australia. They're superstars, and people believe what they say and they buy into it. Do you know what I mean? And we need more of that individualism. And the problem is here is the sport's like it's old school, that if you stand out a bit, if you're, like you said, if you're playing good, you do what you want. Do you know what I mean? If you're playing good and you want to start a business, fire away.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you're top of your game and you decide to start a grip socks, do you know what I mean, or whatever it may be, or you decide to put yourself out there, you start dressing a bit nice or whatever. You know, you get a nice watch, fire away. If you're playing shite, you can't do it. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, that's the reason that you're playing crap. Do you know what I mean? But
exactly
that's not actually the case, and we need stars, we need rivalries, we need people who you hate and love on the pitch, and we need to see more of the player's life. And that's why I love this platform, and I love chatting with people like yourself, because like you've had people giving you shit, you've had the star boy moments, but it's being able to actually express yourself in that way and go, you know what, like I'm still a person, for one, and two, like it should be. We should have those individuals who we actually love them as people and love their characters. I love characters in the game. I love talking to mad players. I love the mad interviews. But then all of a sudden, it's 2 weeks later, he's had a bad game and they're pulling up the interview. But no, that's bullshit. You know, it's not because you had that interview that you had a bad game. No one's gone out to play bad. No one's gone out to play bad. But we need characters within the game. People who are talking about mad stuff, and like Conrad Hurl's now with us, and he's a character of the game. We need more people like him. We need more people like you. We need more people like Mikey, who put themselves out there, who kids go, he's hilarious, or I want to dress like Will Pryce, or I want Will Pryce's boots, you know, like they do with footballers. And even with football now, like there's no characters in football, because they're so big that people can't express themselves anymore.
No.
There's no Roy Keanes anymore who say what they want and just have it and do it as it is.
Yeah.
And we need that, don't we? We need
course you
people
do.
who are hilarious.
I think like what maybe the general public don't understand, or what people don't live our lives don't understand, is what we're not egotistic people away from the field. We're all pretty humble in the sense of we're all normal working class people. Everyone comes from a good that working class background. So as people, we're all pretty normal, humble people. Everyone gets along pretty well in a rugby scene, and there's not many dickheads.
Yeah.
But when you step over the white line, we talked about mentality before. Ego is a part of that. For you to be the best players in the game, they've all got a different ego. You talk about Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Tiger Woods. You talk about these athletes that are the generational talents of their sport. Everyone always talks about the way they are on the field. It's a mentality, it's an ego. They're different people on the field or on the court. They're different people. So we've got to have that. And the way people are on the field is completely different to the way people are off it. And I think that taps into the mentality side of things. I think I've had it before where I get people commenting on how I am, and they tap into your personality, whether it's fans commenting on social media or journals speaking about you in newspapers. That's not who you are as a person. It's just who you are as a player. It's just who you are. To compete at the highest level, you might have to have that flick of a switch, or you might have to have that competitive edge in your mentality, in your ego, to make you play better. And that's just that. That's just what we are.
Exactly. And just because you express yourself in a certain way doesn't mean that you can't flick that switch on.
Yeah.
Do you know? And I think I love the insights into people's lives and behind the scenes, and we need more of that. We need more. We just need more characters in this game, because, like you said, we want to grow the sport. We want to Americanize it. We want I genuinely believe that this sport is one of the best sports on earth. It's just not. People just don't know about it, or there's a certain stigma around it that it's just not broadcast in the right way. Whatever way we present the package of rugby league, it's not presented in a way that is globalising the sport, like rugby union. Because I grew up playing rugby union. I love watching rugby union. I'm not here to bag rugby union. But if we started again today, with the two same sports starting from ground scratch, I can guarantee you more people. Rugby league would be the global sport, because the product, the excitement, everything about it is fantastic. Like, it's just I'm so excited about watching the sport. It's quick. There's athletes, and there's charisma as well. Like you said, we're working class people. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not, we don't come from generations of elitism. Do you know? And that's what makes it crack, isn't it? You know what I mean? That's what makes us funny on the field. Excuse me. And the fans banter with each other. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
There's genuinely nothing like a derby game, or fans giving each other like that. It's there's no harm in it though. It's not like football where they need 20,000 security guards to exit them out of the stadium. Do you know what I mean? Like they'll all walk out together and say, "Oh, that chant was funny," and that. But that's what makes our sport special, and that's how we grow the sport on a global scale. Coming to now, obviously you spoke about your injury at the start. You're out injured. You're at Hull FC. You've come back to England. What's going through your mind now as you go through that sort of rehabilitation process, and you're trying to get yourself back on the field, fighting fit? You started the season like a house on fire when you came over. I think you were killing it, and I was glad to see. And then obviously, unfortunately, this has come about, but that's sort of part of the sport as well, where we do pick up injuries, and they are frustrating as anything.
Yeah. Funnily enough, everyone that's asked me about the injury, I've said the same thing you've said. It's part of our job. It comes with the game. We're all athletes, and we're an elite level sport, so injuries is part of it. And for me, I tore my hamstring, so I did a grade 3C hamstring tear, which is pretty bad. It's got tendon involved. It's a 10 to 12 week injury, so it's not the best injury. It's pretty lengthy in terms of how long it's going to take me to get back, but just tapping into as much as I can. So obviously I've got a good support network at Hull where they all want me back on the field as well. So they're doing everything they can on their side to get me back to where I can be competing on that level. So I'm really sort of trying to repay the favour, as in I'm doing all my rehab and recovery away from training. I've managed to get a hyperbaric chamber in my house. I've got the sauna. I'm icing, all day, every day. So it's sort of taking over my life at the moment. Whilst I'm not playing, I'm not drinking, I'm not really going out much. I'm trying to go back to the basics of eating well, sleeping well, just doing everything I can away from training to give myself the best opportunity of getting back as fast as I can. you know, we're in a pretty tough spot at the moment where we're in and out of the top 6. But you know, the boys are doing a great job at competing every week and winning games, and we had a good win on the weekend. So just as much help as I can be around the team in terms of a positive person, giving as much help to any of the players I can. The young boys around the squad that are coming in and out and playing games, as much as I can help them with my experiences, I am doing so. Yeah, look, it's a tough situation. Anybody who's been injured, you know how tough it is. It's really tough on your mind and it's taxing, but it's part of the job. Trying to stay positive, trying to stay grateful for the opportunity I've got, and looking back at that, you know, I've tried to turn my focus away from the games as much and try to focus on other things. Like you know, I've managed to get myself a house, so I'm moving over to Hull, and I'm
Congrats,
getting,
bro.
Thanks, bro. I'm getting all that sorted away from the sport. So just trying to focus on other things that brings me enjoyment, and not trying to surround myself and find the balance of being injured as well. It's obviously tough, but I've got a good group of people around me. I've got a really good group of mates away from rugby who, you know, support me, come to every game, and you know that they look after me as much as they can, and my family, and also the boys I'm with at training. They're the best. You know, they've welcomed me massively, and you know they've got a genuine care for me, and I've got a genuine care for them, and that's what builds the trust. So they just, hopefully I can get back out as quick as I can.
Yeah, 100%. And I speak on it on every podcast nearly about how frustrating injuries are, and they are part of our sport, but it is a mental battle, and it's a mental slog. And the longer the injury, the longer the mental slog. And I think the biggest thing that you touched on there is like obviously the trying to nail the 1%ers, isn't it? Like the first time I ever done a major injury, I'd never been injured before. Like I just didn't get my rehab right at all. Like I came back, I ended up putting on a couple kilos. Like not. I don't even think I got fat. I just got too jacked.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I was just smashing upper bodies sessions like 5 days a week. When I did my cinders when I was at Huddersfield, I was smashing so much upper body that when I came back to run, I was heavier than when I last ran.
Yeah.
So immediately I was like on the back foot, like 3-4 kilos heavier than I. Whereas you nearly want to get back running a bit lighter and then like build your way back in, build your way. So those little things, those little 1%ers are huge. Like you touched on as well, getting a hyperbaric chamber in your gaff, like that's serious work. For those who don't know, a hyperbaric chamber, you're breathing in 100% oxygen, which to getting one of them installed in your house, I don't even know where I'd put one if I had one in here. Like, you know, it's a big task, and people don't realize the sacrifice that you're going through to get yourself back on the field. Like people just go, "Oh, no, he's lit the cigar." No player wants to be sidelined. No player wants to be sidelined, and everyone's fighting to get back fit as quick as possible. And it's a mental slog going through that injury, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my first pretty major injury. So obviously I had injuries when I was younger. I fractured my back and I was out for a while, but it's the first injury where I've been proactive instead of reactive. You know, as soon as the injury came, I've tried to do as much as I can in these weekly blocks so that I know I've given myself the best opportunity, and that just sits right in my head. It gives me the evidence to be able to perform better in training. I think if I look back and compare how I was on my last major injury, so when I moved to Australia, I broke my foot. So we played against Lee for Huddersfield on a Friday night game, and the lights cut out of the game. I remember it. And in that game, I stepped and broke my foot. I had 3 fractures over my 3rd, 4th and 5th metatarsal. But because we had to play the exact same team, I couldn't not play. So I was telling the physios what had gone on. And they're just like, "Oh, don't worry, it's just tendon issues. If we've got anything wrong with you, we'll just inject it." So I was a bit like, "All right, sweet. I'll believe what you said." They didn't send me for a scan or anything, and this is just how the environment were at Huddersfield. You know, this is just what they were like, and the physios and the coach were like at the time. And I remember they made me we played the game again 2 days later, and I had to play, and I didn't even know I'd had a broken foot. I had 2 injections in my plantar fascia, so at the bottom of my foot. And if anybody's had them painkiller injections on your feet, toes, it's the worst pain ever, honestly. It's like you're getting them in your sternum, it's so sore. And I got that for another 8 weeks after that, and I didn't know I were injured. So at the end of that 2023 year, I got pulled into England camp, and I spoke to Sean Wayne, and I was supposed to play for England against Tonga, and that would have been my England debut. And I could barely run in England training, so they sent me for a CT scan and an MRI scan, and we found out on them scans that I had 3 broken bones in my foot. I remember ringing up the physios at Huddersfield and going mental, you know.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, after I'd found out I was injured, I didn't take any precautions or didn't have a proper rehab plan before I went to Australia. So I had about a month block where I should have been rehabbing my foot, but instead I were out partying with my mates because it was my last month in England before I moved to Australia. Or I were, you know, going out, wasn't really bothered about this. I was going and doing activities, going and just living life as a young kid. I was 19, so I didn't really have any sort of rehab plan or what I should have been doing. I ended up being 4 kilos heavier just from living life and not training because I had a broken foot. I thought, I'll just rest it. I wasn't rehabbing it properly. Whereas now my mindset's completely flipped. In I watch what I eat, what I'm drinking. Look at my sleep and my recovery is massive. So obviously I'm sleeping with a mouth tape, nose tape. I've got blackout eye mask. I'm doing all this stuff to try and help as much as I can. And like we spoke about before, that's just that change in mentality and the growth of learning that you get as you get a bit older. You understand what really matters in terms of what makes you happy. And for me, my happiness comes from playing rugby week in, week out. So to get that back, I've got to be able to do as much as I can.
Yeah, you can't leave any stone unturned at all. And yeah, it's crazy hearing that story. And it's mad the injuries that you sometimes end up playing through. Doesn't like it's crazy to think you're jobbing yourself up. I know those jobs are ruthless. Back into last year, I was jobbing my ribs, and it was horrendous. And these are the things people don't see that we're doing to get through games. Do you know what I mean? Like by the end of the year, like your body's absolutely wrecked, and you're just trying to keep on going, keep on turning up for yourself. I think you can clearly see the growth in you as an individual. The stuff you're doing now to get yourself back onto the field it's nothing shy of special, really. Looking ahead at the future, obviously you said you want to win a major trophy. Is there anything else that you think you sort of want to work towards, or any goals that you have, or that if you feel like sharing? I know I don't like sharing a lot of my goals, but if there's any that you feel like sharing,
no, I'll talk about my goals. Obviously, as a player, I've got goals where I've obviously signed this long deal at Hull now, and I signed the deal because I saw how ambitious the club is. We've got new owners, we've got a lot of players in the squad are new and changed. So my goal is to win a major trophy with Hull, whether that's a Challenge Cup, Super League. I think in the next couple of years we can definitely build towards that. We've got a good base of squad, we've got good foundations, the environment's growing in a positive way, and I want to build something with that team and that club. And for me, I think I've still not managed to do it yet, so I want to make my England debut. I think if I can just keep competing week in, week out for Hull, playing good rugby for them, and hopefully, I do enough to maybe get in that squad, whether that's just in the general squad or in the starting 13. I'd love to be around that. I think it's obviously the pinnacle of any sport is to play for your country, so I'd definitely like to do that. But yeah, that's for me. They're probably my main two rugby goals at the moment.
Special as well, and you mentioned that there's nothing better than playing for your country. Obviously, I'm lucky enough I get to do that for Ireland. It means the world to you. It means the world to you getting to represent your country. And I think the international game is like when we're touching on the growth of the sport, it's something that needs to continue to be pushed. Do you know? I think a strong international game is good for the sport. It's good for everyone. And there needs to be more games. England need to play more. Every country needs to be playing more, and it needs to be prioritised. I think it needs to be at the front of the minds of the people who are behind, like bigger than me and bigger than all in the background. It needs to be at the front of the mind to make the international game a strong game, and hopefully we'll get to see you in an England shirt soon. Finally, I suppose, what's it been like running out for the black and whites? Big following base, big rivalry, big rugby city. Like obviously, there's not. Let's be real. The whole football team haven't been going too good. I think it was 2008 Match Attacks when they were last in the Premier League, something like that. But what's it like, obviously, running out for such a big club and in a big city with such a big rivalry? Like when you're on Derby Day, what is that actually like, and how is that compared to obviously Huddersfield, who everyone knows don't have the biggest following? It's not the main sport. Huddersfield have a football team. It's not the biggest sport in the city. Whereas in Hull, it's huge.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think Huddersfield, obviously they don't have the biggest following. I think there'll be some championship teams that get more followers than them, and they obviously play in a massive stadium as well, which doesn't help how it looks on TV. But I obviously managed. I played a few games in Australia and played in sold out stadiums there in front of 20,000. But the English fans, when the English fans are on and they're chanting, the atmosphere is unbelievable. You have to experience it. You just have to experience it. I remember my first game for Hull, or obviously against Hull KR, which is the derby for the Challenge Cup, and I got off the plane 2 days. But I got off the plane on the Wednesday. We playing on the Saturday, so it all happened pretty quick. And I remember just my body was so it was fucked, to be honest. If I'm being honest, but I remember running out for warm up, and I went out by myself because I was goal kicking. So I went out 2 minutes before the whole squad come out, and I'd never experienced a roar of like energy from so many people just towards me, and the way they were singing. They sang Old Faithful when I ran out, and I've obviously been there as a fan. My dad played there for 2 years, so I've supported Hull before, and I know how big of a rugby city it is, but actually living it now, seeing the comments from fans online and seeing the love I'm getting from them, and hopefully I can just keep doing them justice by playing good rugby. But yeah, the atmospheres are electric at every game. We're bringing 2,000-3,000 to Warrington away, Salford away, Wigan away. That's a 3-hour journey for most people from Hull. So, you know, they're crazy. The people are crazy, but I won't swap them for the world. I love playing for Hull FC. And, you know, I think there's something to be excited for us. I think, obviously, at the moment, the other side of the city are on top. They've just won a Challenge Cup, which is great for them, you know, and they're obviously playing a good brand of rugby league. But I think the next few years we've got something building, and it's something to be really excited for the whole fans, and hopefully we can repay back their support by winning some games.
Absolutely, and how exciting to have you at the forefront of all of this. Will Pryce, my man, that was a serious message. Thank you for coming on, my bro.
Thank you, my bro. Appreciate it.
My man.